Plan for everything, but you can be ready for anything. That's where we come in. Northwest Insurance Agency covers the wait, what? Moments in life with real coverage, real people, and real fast help. We offer sombrero-style coverage that protects your possessions, your loved ones, and everything else that fits under a sombrero. Call us today for a quote at 855-887-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. I'm Billy Embody. Make sure you give Mark Villasana and his team a call, 214-352-5656, and they will get you handled on the insurance coverage, rates, everything you need to know about where your coverage should be. They can talk through that with you. And also talk a little SMU football, which we're going to do that today. We're going to do a little recruiting. We'll talk a little basketball as well, as picked up some tidbits this week on the team and kind of resetting the stage for you guys for what is to come with basketball, because this is a part of the year for basketball where the team is not yet there on campus as a whole. You know, teams do it differently around the country. SMU is not one that does the entire summer working the guys to death and things like that. It's a little casual in June, and then they ramp up in July. And so we'll talk about that and some other things on the team. Recruiting for them is heating up. Recruiting for football is hopefully going to heat back up for the Mustangs as they welcome in their final round of official visitors this week. This month. This is the last official visit weekend. We posted the list at ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1. And if you head over to the site and you notice something different on the front page, it's a pretty cool new feature we added for our subscribers who are on annual subscriptions. So if you're not a subscriber, check it out. It'll hit you in the face when you get to the site, and just an added perk for those of you who are on the site to be annual subscribers. So check that out and check out all of our content at ontheponyexpress.com. So diving into things, this was a productive week, crazy week, and people are probably like, what is going on? Why is this podcast coming out on Friday after we had a Monday one? We then had a interview only one, but man, it just really stacked up. Dean Rawlsky and I spent half a day in the Weber End Zone Complex interviewing SMU assistants and getting the lowdown on how the Mustangs are doing in the offseason program with Sean Griswold. So those interviews will hit you guys on the YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever you catch the podcast at, feed here over the next couple of weeks. We'll be dropping those. We're going to do Sean Griswold to kick off next week. Perfect time to have him give us a midsummer update on the Mustangs. And then Dean has exclusive content that will be at ontheponyexpress.com behind the paywall for you guys. So lots of good stuff from our time in Weber. And let's lead off with kind of the big storyline of the weekend. And that is the final official visitor weekend for SMU. And we kick it off by talking about one of their top commitments making it to SMU and kind of putting a bow on his summer. And that's Xavier Barnett, 4-star wide receiver out of Yoakum, Texas. One of the best wide receivers in the country, a big outside threat for SMU. 6'3", 190 pounds, has been committed since January and not wavered in that pledge. I know he popped over to LSU for an unofficial visit and got around that program, which they had been recruiting him, and they might even have an offer out to him formally. But he is somebody that at this point is pretty locked in with SMU and hasn't really wavered, has really been focused on preparing for his senior season, working out with his teammates. And I know he's been hitting the 7-on-7 circuit a lot with them. So Xavier is a really under the radar piece of this class. And I think he has a chance to be one of the top performing players in this class when it's all said and done, because he is still raw, but he has some of the athleticism that you look for, plays basketball, just kind of does it all. I think he did a little bit of track this year, but I don't think it really, I didn't see too much of it. I mean, he keeps a low profile, so it wouldn't shock me on that front, because he does keep such a low profile. Sometimes it's hard to see kind of what he's doing. I never know what he's doing. But Xavier Barnett is a key piece of this class. Him and Algebra Miles have really bonded well. I see them going back and forth on Twitter and kind of pumping up the recruiting class and the rankings and all of those things that this coaching staff has assembled with this bunch. So when you have him coming back, it's going to help because he is going to get a chance to recruit two players that SMU would like to add to its offensive firepower. And one is Ty Crothers. He's at Garland High School. He did not play last year on the varsity front. He is a sleeper, but he is committed to Texas State. He committed to them last weekend on his official visit. He's quietly sneaking back in, I think, to SMU is the word, and he will get on campus and kind of hear SMU out. Remember, we talked about this last pod. This is one of Texas State's top guys. So they probably have I would say, I guess robust, it might be the best way to put it, approach with him when it comes to his revenue share, his opportunity to have a strong revenue share. Whereas SMU has an approach where, okay, we like him a lot. I just don't know. I don't think they're going to spend. I don't think they're going to spend to get him. But he is coming in for the weekend. He's going to get a chance to be around the staff. He camped at SMU earlier this month and it seemed like he really enjoyed himself. Him getting in on that Texas State class I think was a smart play with him. Just not knowing, hey, if SMU is going to push that hard for me, what should I do? So I think this is one of those things where maybe this ends up being a good situation for SMU and they end up getting him and everything kind of checks the boxes and they had gotten him around the program again and that really paid off. But on the flip side of it, I just don't know if they're going to, go full speed ahead here. So that is something worth, noting when it comes to whether or not they go again full speed ahead with a guy like Ty Crothers. I think they will, but I don't think they're going to, be a situation where he, gets paid a lot of money to flip if things are all checking, the boxes the right way and all those things. I think it'll be more of I end up wanting to stay home and do all of that. So SMU will kind of balance that out and see if it all works. That's part of the thing with recruiting now is it's more so like free agent visits for NFL teams. And the free agent pool is the high school pool. And they'll take their visits and their family, their representation, they'll see if they like the visit, see if they like the coaching staff. Usually if you're taking an official visit, you like them enough and they're among your top schools. Most of the time now you're not seeing it for that kind of like easy trip or somewhere, exotic and kind of getting around different experiences and you're never, ever going to go to that school. But then there's the piece of, well, do the numbers work for me and my family? And we've kind of talked about this with a guy like Kai Anderson, where SMU values him as a top of the board type of guy, and LSU as the number one receiver in the country committed right now. They can't step up paying him that much because they've got to take care of the number one wide receiver in the country, Tristan Keys. So that is the hard part, I think, with recruiting these days is trying to figure out how all of that is going to play out. But for Ty Crothers, he is somebody that has legitimate interest in SMU. And I think that could end up going, a long way in this. And as he makes, that final decision and tries to figure out if this is in fact the place for him, that'll be something that he'll really have to kind of dive into and think over as he goes through his official visit and then looks back on where things stand with Texas State and all of those things. So we will keep a close eye on him though, because he is certainly one of those guys that they do value and are obviously bringing him in on official visits. Just what's the play, what's going to happen next and where are they going to end up, at with the money side of things for Ty Crothers. So it's just different now. It's way different. Before we go any further, I also want to remind you guys about our friends at Embody. Embody is the #1 resource for SMU football. 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 Mignon in Plano. Head up Preston Road. If you're coming, from the south, you go up Preston Road. If you're coming from Frisco or Salina or Prosper or where have you, come south on Preston. Once you hit that HEB right there on Spring Creek, you're right in the neighborhood to enjoy one of the best meals you can find across DFW. Mignon is open 7 days a week for dinner and also brunch on Sunday starting at 10:30. Really appreciate former SMU offensive lineman Nick Nator and his family for all the hospitality we've received when we've gone to Mignon. And I was trading messages on the Pony Express message board this week, and somebody said, "Hey, we've got to get together." I said, "That's right. We have to do brunch at Mignon and kind of have a SMU football preseason powwow." We've got a couple of different events in the works, so stay tuned. But Mignon, fine dining experience that you just can't beat. The combination of the food, the hospitality, and ambiance there. So check them out and make your reservation on Open Table. The final official visitor of the weekend for SMU, there was going to be 4, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But the third is Eddie Kelly Jr. out of Houston Klein High School, one of the most productive running backs in the state of Texas last year, a player that has really impressed the SMU staff with where he's come over the last few months. 235 carries, 1,677 yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, 24 receptions, 240 receiving yards, and 3 receiving TDs. He also had 7 returns for 256 yards and 1 touchdown. That's over 2,100 all-purpose yards last year. Yes, he's unranked. He is going to most certainly see his ranking change. He's run back-to-back 4.4s at SMU camp. He has been able to put together a really nice, tape out there, obviously off that junior season, but he just doesn't flash from a physical perspective. 5'11-ish, 190, 185 pounds, kind of in that range. And when I look at productive backs in SMU's offense, I feel like this could be another Ulysses Bentley, another kind of Braden West. Braden was a little bit more slight than Eddie Kelly, but kind of that speed dynamic that is coming into the offense. That's what SMU is looking to add here, and he's a really, really good player. I think most likely if he gets a ranking before his season, you'll see it be a little bit more of a sleeper ranking, and his recruitment has kind of been more of a sleeper ranking. So it's one of those things where you're like, wow, look at that production. Where are the rest of the colleges? Because it's SMU and Washington State right now. Pitt had offered, UTSA had offered, Louisiana, UTEP, New Mexico, kind of a group that's kind of all over the place. But at the same time, I mean, that production, I mean, it's just impressive. So SMU is pushing here for Eddie Kelly. It wouldn't shock me if they landed him. I saw last week or maybe the week before, we saw Washington State announce that I don't think they're going to be doing the full rev share. So, I mean, they're going to be strapped for cash. I don't know if this is a top guy that they're going to, push for in that regard, but this is a prospect that they've really done a lot of research on, and I think they like him a lot. Christian Rhodes is their guy. He's their 4-star. He's their big-time back, and you're not going to see SMU go nuts here on the rev share side of things, but they need to get another high school back in the class of 2026, or when the portal opens, if Eddie Kelly says, Washington State's, been on me really hard and all this stuff, and they're going to take care of me and whatever, I'm going to go up there. SMU is going to then look to the portal and look at a guy who signed in the class of 2025, a younger back, to kind of continue to put the running back room in good position numbers wise long term. So that's kind of the plan here. Eddie Kelly's a great kid. Really enjoyed getting to know him. Saw him camp last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe now, at SMU when he earned the offer, and he was really, really happy. And I think we're going to see this one get across the finish line and SMU will pick him up. But it's, again, kind of one of those weird things that you just never know if a kid could be really feeling the school, but at the same time unable to end up attending or picking that school because you have so much other pieces going on with the recruiting side of things for these kids. So always something worth noting now, and it's just, again, so weird, different than it was a couple years ago before rev share and things like that. So those are the 3 official visitors SMU is going to have in this weekend. They were going to have 4, but Dejan Moore, the big offensive lineman, we talked about him earlier this week. He did commit to Pitt. He confirmed that he is no longer going to take this official visit to SMU. And quite honestly, now when SMU and many schools, this, I've been lucky enough to cover multiple schools at a high level and see a lot of different storylines emerge with the thought process around recruiting in this environment. And Dejan Moore is going to get taken care of by Pitt. Meanwhile, SMU has Papunga Katoa, and SMU, in part of the reason why they beat out Oklahoma, part of the reason why they beat out Texas A&M, is because they are going to be able to take care of Toe and his family. And Dejan Moore is probably Pitt's number 1 offensive lineman on their entire board. And he is going to end up getting paid to a level where I don't know if that's I know that's something SMU was not comfortable with, because there are other guys on the roster who are going to command or are already getting paid a high level, who's already proven what they can do on the football field. And so it's a really unique situation. But what SMU can do now is they can go through the fall. They can get Dejan Moore back on campus at some point if they still like him enough, senior season eval, all that stuff. And they can say, hey, are you willing to reconsider? Maybe things change for SMU. Maybe they know that, all right, they're going to have this guy, that guy, this guy roll off, their roster. Maybe PJ Williams is, playing at a lights out level and he's going to be a day 1 or day 2 draft pick, and SMU knows he's gone. I mean, that's a real possibility. Well, that would also free up a lot of money. And working in the cap system is a part of balancing this now. So I'm not sitting here saying that Dejan Moore bought and paid for, that's the only reason why SMU missed out on this battle. But at the same time, SMU was upfront and said, look, we can't do that, monetarily. So Dejan Moore commits to Pitt, and good for him. Now SMU has to, win out on a Drew Evers, an Avery Morcho, or an Evan Goodwin. We've talked about that. We've talked about that at ontheponyexpress.com. And we'll see if he ends up getting back on campus for an official visit. But at least SMU now has that official visit still in the back pocket, so they can circle back around on that and figure out what's next. So a really good prospect, 4-star prospect, almost top 200 player on On3, a top 10 interior offensive lineman. Make no mistake about it, and I've said it on the board, like big development that he is not ending up at SMU, but something that they can work through, because they aren't going to overpay in terms of value that they see in players. And that's the trick with high school recruiting here. There's a very select few players that SMU is recruiting that would walk in the building and be, a notable rev share number. Like, notable as in you don't have skins on the wall in the college game, but wow, you're a notable rev share guy. So it's just a balance. I mean, it's a balance. J.R. Sandlin and the team, the personnel department has to figure it out. And that's the new world that SMU and so many programs are living in. And it results in some, I don't want to say weird, because, that would be, I just don't think that would represent it well. But sometimes you can see developments happen. You're like, that was strange. Like, even in recruiting, I mean, recruiting can just kind of, you get certain things that happen in it, and it just can wow you sometimes. Like Dejan Moore, before he went up to Pitt, was like, I'm so excited to get back to SMU and get back to my hometown. And that's what he told me. And clearly Pitt made a really good offer, and obviously he liked them, well enough as well to be going up there as, on an official visit, and that changed things. So that's the interesting piece when it comes to the the recruiting world that we live in these days, and we'll see kind of how it evolves. But SMU kind of taking a little bit more of a patient approach with seeing how it evolves in the high school world, especially in RevShare, because I mean, RevShare's calendar is July 1 to June 30th. So you also can't get tied up a bunch in this money with high school players and then change it up when they get to campus. And that is where business can be really bad. And so this is a learning time, and we'll see kind of how it all plays out for SMU as they get into the season and just kind of let the recruiting dust settle from the summer, and then see kind of what teams start to do and put together and things like that. Before we go any further on the podcast, I do want to remind you guys about our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. Appreciate David Henry and his team for their support of the On the Pony Express podcast for so long now. They've been one of our key partners and do a great job taking care of SMU fans and On the Pony Express listeners and subscribers who work with him and his team on creating the trip of a lifetime. And when you mention On the Pony Express or code PonyUpACC, you get a discount on a round trip flight. Sweet deal. Plan that last minute 4th of July getaway, or start planning your SMU football season travel with our friends at StatusJet. Before we continue on to basketball, I want to hit on basketball at the end of the pod. A really cool event we were at the other night, and just it's crazy to see the jump in the program from year 1 to year 2 under Andy Enfield, and to see where that program is going, and see how much more comfortable the entire staff is. The whole staff's back, and they're hitting their stride a little bit. I think they're feeling confident in things overall. But I do want to share a couple things with you guys as football now hits a period, and you'll hear about this on either, I guess, probably Tuesday. Realistically, if we get recruiting news or whatever, we'll drop the Grizz interview on Tuesday. But the football team is just getting done with their Mustang Foundation, which is kind of the early period of the summer where they lay that foundation. The coaches get OTAs. They get, I believe, 9 OTAs, and I could be misremembering what Grizz said, but 9 OTAs, and they get to work with them, for, I think it's an hour. It's limited, but they get on the field. They're able to work them out. They're able to do some install stuff. And then this week, I believe, or maybe next week, was the heaviest lift of the year. And it's where they really go heavy. And then July turns into really getting these bodies, these high-end sports cars revved up for fall camp and then for the season. And so that's kind of the focus of the strength staff right now. A couple of notes on the roster. I believe there's only 3 players that aren't here. Link Rhodes, the junior college wide receiver, one of the fastest guys in junior college, is set to arrive in July. TJ Harden, the UCLA transfer who led the Bruins in rushing, is set to arrive in July. And then you have Devin Martin, the junior college tight end, is set to arrive in July as well. So I believe that's the 3 that did arrive. And then SMU did add a gray shirt. They gray shirted Duncanville defensive back Davian Dotson-Walker. So he is now with the program on campus. And we had some cool conversations with Ricky Hunley around that and the Duncanville pipeline. And not only the Duncanville pipeline, but you have Davian Dotson-Walker, you have Tyron Polley, you have Jay Holly, you have a bunch of guys, Lamadrick Spencer, who have played together in the Duncanville secondary, which is wild to kind of have that many players from one school at one time who all played together at one position or a position group. So a really good player who, again, gray shirted now, is with SMU. So I believe that's the notable roster moves notes of the summer. And now what the staff is doing is they're finalizing these rev share agreements that start July 1. The house settlement, for those that don't know, and we want to get our friend Alex Anderson back on the podcast here soon to kind of break down from a legal perspective what all this means. There's already a couple lawsuits and retaliatory lawsuits, it seems like, to try and fight all of this going on. So there's still and always going to be lawyers on this stuff. But what has happened is the house settlement has been approved, and revenue sharing from colleges is now set to begin on July 1st. And we're going to see how all these schools now have to negotiate deals. They have to, abide by this revenue share cap, which is about 20 to 22 million from what I understand. And it's kind of you talk to coaches of different schools and all this, and you don't, you can tell that not everybody understands what's going on. But any contract that is over $600 a month has to be sent through NIL Go, which is a clearinghouse run by Deloitte. And Deloitte will then take it and look at them and see if these deals are legit, fair market value, and then rule on them. And if they're not, they can then be sent back and they can rework them to create a better fair market deal. They can scrap it completely. But if they've gone through with the deal, from what I understand, then players will have that taken out of the revenue share cap of their school, or the school will have it taken out. So that is supposed to kind of safeguard against some of these bigger deals that are shams or not fair market value and things like that. The idea is that we're going to see this be fair market value. We'll see how Deloitte starts ruling on things, because you can make all sorts of different arguments and you can make all sorts of different, attempts to reason with the clearinghouse as to why it should be paid or why it should be approved. But we'll see kind of how things go. But so the House settlement is approved right now. The staff is finishing up, J.R. Sandlin and his crew, finishing up their revenue sharing agreements with players. And I mean, there's no reason. I mean, none of these guys can transfer, so it's not really. I don't think you're going to see any, holdouts or anything. I could be totally wrong on that, but I don't think holdouts are going to happen from this stuff. But they'll have revenue share agreements done and things like that formally now that the House settlement is approved. So it is going to be quite the year as colleges look to figure out how this goes. But I can tell you, SMU football, SMU basketball, well funded. I mean, it's as good of a situation as you can ask for with the two programs. So talked with a lot of people over the last week or so about this, and kind of, was reiterated to me that things are in good shape, and SMU's going to have plenty of money to work with on this revenue sharing stuff, which most of the colleges across the country have front loaded things so that you're not even going to necessarily notice the rev share side of it until next year. So you're kind of in a whole nother year of, we don't know what this is going to look like in a sense. Like, the schools have kind of paid out a lot already with hopes of being done with that so that they can take advantage of it this year. So it's a very unique time, and we'll see kind of what happens with it as we go. But that is the time of year for the personnel side of things. Once these official visits are done, in particular, they'll go way into overdrive on that. And then in July, the team kind of turns its attention to, finalizing things for, fall camp and getting together and figuring out, who captains are. You've got ACC media days that are July 22nd through the 24th. Dean Ralsky and I will be on location in Charlotte for that. Really excited about that. And then you have, a whole lead up of a week or so before fall camp gets going, and we're back into the groove. So SMU now, when it comes to their workouts, I did want to highlight a couple of things. Tyler Van Dyke, backup quarterback for SMU. I would imagine I saw him walking around campus. I would be surprised if he's ready to go week one, but we'll see. He'll probably be out there in camp, is my guess, but they're going to be very careful with him. Remember, that was part of the plan when Rhett Lashley and his staff and Derek King brought him in. And so his recovery is going well, but I think they're going to be really careful with him. And it wouldn't shock me if he was limited in fall camp. So something to keep an eye on there. We haven't got an official statement on that, but that's just kind of my gut and kind of what I feel after, just kind of seeing him walk around campus. I was like, okay, still just a little bit of a ways to go. I did see Jonathan Jefferson. You can tell he's recovering from his knee surgery from those first couple days of fall camp. He's got a brace on. He's a long way away. Again, they're going to be careful with him because he's not even a guy that at this point I see playing in the 2024 or 2025 season. And so he's going to be somebody that medicals and then ends up being able to play in 2026. And so similar to Tyler Van Dyke, you can't mess up this recovery because one, I mean, Jonathan Jefferson is as of now an even bigger piece than Tyler Van Dyke, because if Kevin Jennings still comes back, then Tyler Van Dyke is probably moving on. He's probably not even your backup quarterback in 26, but Jonathan Jefferson is a huge, huge piece for this defense when healthy. So they're taking it slow with him, but man, he's a big dude. It sucks that, he got hurt the first couple of days of spring. RJ Maryland doing well, Matt Hibner doing well. Jaden Milner-Jones was talked up as well by Ricky Hundley now that he's back and a full go. He's, was pushing for some time in the secondary before he got hurt and kind of had it sounds like just kind of a bunch of different things, but he's back and ready to go. Marcellus Barnes is now a full go in summer workouts as well. He's a transfer from Syracuse who probably ends up being one of the starting corners if all goes to plan, and he is back and ready to roll as well. So I think that's all the injury and kind of random roster tidbits that I've got for you guys, but do want to remind you guys as well about our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. Thomas Auto Group, head up 75 McKinney, learn about the Thomas Promise, and ask them about employee pricing for those of you who are on the Pony Express listeners, subscribers, viewers, and make sure you take advantage of that employee pricing on new and pre-owned vehicles when you mention that.
At Thomas Auto Group, the Thomas Promise includes the low price promise,
the pre-owned promise,
and the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, home of the Thomas Promise.
Now, as we get close to wrapping up the podcast, I do want to mention that SMU Basketball did extend a couple of big offers earlier this week. They did offer one of the nation's top overall big men in the country, or at least he's now in the States, but he's out of Montreal, Quebec, and is playing his final year of high school ball here in the States. And that is Afaron Diane, and one of the top big men in the country, 6'11", 280 pounds. He was a top performer at the NBPA Top 100 camp, and SMU had some of the coaches there watching him, and just was really impressed with him clearly, and extended an offer to him. He's picking up some recruiting steam here as well, and is really seeing his recruitment take off over the course of these last few weeks following his performance at the camp. So he is the nation's number 2 center nationally. He's a top 32 prospect. So if the rankings ended, he would be 5-star. In addition to SMU, Miami, Michigan, Utah, Illinois, BYU, who is spending as well right now, UVA, Iowa, Arkansas, all offering Arizona, Oregon, Louisville, and others. He's listed at 6'11". There's a thought that he's a 7-footer, big body. He can score at each level, or shown the propensity to do that. He's knocked down his only 3 attempt. He hit some mid-range jumpers. He's also a presence around the basket, and he's getting comfortable, getting over his left shoulder in the half court, and has some good footwork with the ball as well. So he'll need to get stronger as well, but had a big week there at the NBA Top 100 camp where so many colleges send their coaches to eval guys. And then SMU did offer Colbin Landrew as well. He's out of Wheeler High School in the state of Georgia, one of the powerhouses out there in the Peach State. Top 100 prospect, top 20 shooting guard nationally. And he is going to be somebody that, SMU tries to get in the mix for. I think he's a little bit farther down the road in his recruitment, and Alabama is pushing for him. He's originally from Alabaster, Alabama, and he is locked in an official visit for October 18th. He's already been to Ole Miss, and he's scheduled to visit Purdue later this month as well. So he is already kind of down the road a little bit in his recruitment, but I did see he picked up an offer, and he's looking heavily at the play style of school. So I think this is somewhere SMU can maybe make some inroads because they do play an exciting brand of basketball. And if that's the case, then maybe they get a shot with him as well. So this will be somebody that, SMU hopes to make a move with and see kind of what happens. And then another one who actually he doesn't have a profile just yet. His name is Dianchis Bakari is what I'm going with here, but he's a 6'6" wing out there right now who's really on the rise, and SMU has entered the mix. He's averaged 14.2 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game in the early goings of the EYBL season, but has really just picked up a heavy run of recruiting attention. He's also from Canada as well, but SMU, Penn State, USF are among his recent offers, and we will see kind of how this one goes, but they're just jumping in the mix with him. So keep an eye on those 3 new offers. And of course, your Austin Goosebys, some of your big time targets for SMU basketball are still out there. Duke did offer Austin Gooseby, so kind of a big development there when it comes to the Melissa shooting guard that SMU is very, very, very high on. He's been one of their top targets for a long, long time now, but he did pick up a Duke offer. They're going to see kind of how, obviously, Duke recruits him and see if that is, is handled overall. But yeah, Duke offering was a big development, and we will see kind of how this one goes with Duke and kind of if they prioritize them. I know Duke also sent out another. I think they sent out an offer to Bryson Howard as well, who has been on or was going to be on SMU's campus this month, but it's kind of a deal where they ran out of time. But SMU is still fighting for Bryson Howard. So my guess is that I think it was Bryson Howard that picked up the offer. So they both play the same position. It's hard to see both of them ending up at Duke, which could benefit SMU. SMU is working to get an official locked in with Bryson Howard as well, but Austin Gooseby has an official locked in. There's multiple guys in Texas that we've touched on at ontheponyexpress.com that are going to be players that SMU gets on officials that they get, in the right situation. One guy that we actually haven't touched on this on the board, but by the time it drops, I'll make a note of it on the board. But Davion Atkins is somebody that I think we're seeing this one get a little bit out of hand with regards to NIL in terms of what SMU wants to pay versus maybe what the market is kind of determining for him. But he's been the number 1 player at times in Texas. He's the number 1 player on the On3 industry ranking, but he's a top 50 guy on On3. He's the number 3 prospect in Texas for On3. But this comes at the same time where SMU has developed a quick relationship with Billy White III, who is On3's number 1 prospect in Texas. He is, the rankings ended today, a 5-star and a top 10 small forward nationally. So you're seeing the board shuffle a little bit. SMU's already got an official visit locked in with Billy White, but the basketball staff is full speed ahead on recruiting and trying to get things locked in on that front. So you'll see a lot more of that developing over the course of the next several weeks. Peach Jam is in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to be out in Atlanta during that time. I just don't know if we'll be able to make it out there for it because it is, for those of you in Atlanta listening, that traffic is killer. So Peach Jam is, in a couple of weeks, but we'll see if we can actually get out there, boots on the ground. But it's a big final weekend and week of scouting and evaling for these staffs, and then you'll see the board really finalize, and then SMU will go full speed ahead and try to get a couple of these guys done and keep the recruiting momentum going. Before we drop a few tidbits on the SMU basketball team, do want to remind you guys about our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. $500 off by mentioning on the Pony Express. Alex Carpenter and his team has delivered big time for our listeners. Had one of my friends do pavers and stonework and kind of do some of those different things on the side of his yard to kind of level it out. You know, those areas that just don't grow grass and look like crap? Well, Alex Carpenter and his team can make it look beautiful. And whether you want to do a full backyard makeover with the putting green, chipping area, or pavers or what have you, or if you just need some ugly looking areas freshened up a little bit, they can handle it and make it look really, really good for you and create a space to entertain as well. So $500 off your project with AKM Turf and Greens. Go to akmturfandgreens.com and reach out for more information. Appreciate all of you guys for supporting all of our podcast sponsors throughout the summer and year. Just want to take this time to shout them all out and make sure that you guys continue to check them out. We've got obviously Mark Villasana, Northwest Insurance Agency. We've got Status Jet. We've got Thomas Auto Group. We've got AKM Turf and Greens, Mignon. We've got Manny's, who's celebrating 20 years next week. So make sure you check them out as well. Rowback. We've got so many different, companies that support us. And of course, Bill Armstrong and I are in the very strong phases of planning out our 2025 season of events and podcasts on the Walking Strong front. So it's going to be an exciting year, and it's going to be an exciting year for SMU basketball. So right now, this team is not all here. They are not all here because Andy Enfield and his staff don't require everybody to be here until July 1. And most of the guys, from what I understand, do hang out in Dallas and work out at the facility, spend some time with the coaches, do all those things. But it's also a time where they kind of get a chance to recharge after school year. The coaches are out recruiting anyway, and they're hosting kids, and they're doing this and they're doing that. So now is the time where they're starting to get locked in. I was at a great event, the SMU Basketball Insider Mixer that was in Dallas just earlier this week. Tremendous time. And Andy Enfield has really gotten comfortable in his role at SMU now, just year over year compared to when he first got in. I think he was feeling out, the new environment, the changes for him personally, professionally, all of that. And now he looked like somebody who's in clear command of what's going on here. Jay Hartzell was there, Damon Evans, a lot of the staff for this program and the athletic department was there. It was a great time and saw a lot of subscribers, so that's always good as well. But do want to share a couple things that he shared. They are gearing up for July 1 when they're going to get them all back. And the one thing I would say, and I think we said this kind of throughout his recruitment, but Corey Washington from Wichita State is somebody that I'm starting to get and sense a little bit more excitement than maybe, people are having right now for him. He's athletic. He plays his tail off. And if you go find Wichita State stuff, you kind of go dive down a rabbit hole, you can really find a ton of fans that really loved him when he played for the Shockers. He just plays his tail off. And Andy Enfield did compare him to Matt Cross and kind of that level of energy and effort and motor. And, the good thing about Corey Washington is he's also, a better athlete, truthfully, than Matt Cross. Matt Cross is kind of that rugged presence, not as bouncy as I think Corey Washington is. So a really big pickup there for SMU. Of course, they're excited about Dron Pierre. They're excited about Sam Walters, who could shoot the basketball and kind of spread things out a little bit for them, is what it sounds like, with his size and ability to shoot it. And that's something they're excited about with him as well. But, also they're excited about the development of their team. This was a new program. This was a program that cobbled together an entire roster and, almost entirely of newcomers, a couple returners, of course, last year. And they tied for fourth in the ACC in the regular season. And they made a splash in recruiting, top 10 recruiting class, best recruiting class in modern SMU basketball history. And at the same time, they're ready to take that next step. They're ready to get some splash wins. They're ready to do some bigger things this season. And they addressed some of the size that they needed out on the wing. And for those of you who were on the message board, kind of complaining about, Boopy Miller maybe faking an injury and entering the transfer portal, it was good to hear Andy Enfield really, I would say, firmly set that record straight. And Boopy Miller had a stress fracture in his foot, and had it at Wake Forest and then got to SMU and aggravated it in the season and then sat out that time. And that was key games for SMU, and then returned to play and played through it, where they were able to manage it by that point. And, now he's back, and he took a lot of grief for, I think he took a lot of grief. Like if he was in a quote unquote bigger market or bigger fishbowl of basketball, people would have been really going nuts, I think. But Boobie Miller is going to be the point guard for this team, and they're really excited about his speed and if he stays healthy, where this team can go. And when you add a guy like Jaron Pierre to the wing and you bring in a really, really strong recruiting class, and then you have a guy like Samet Yigitolu who's going to ride back in the country in time for July 1, and they're ready to work with him at a very consistent level leading up to the season, which they didn't get last year, and see the jump that he should take. It's a big piece to the puzzle for SMU going into next season. So it was just a really, really great event, great time, a lot of excitement around the program. So really looking forward to seeing where it goes the rest of this year, as they'll look to build on one of the best recruiting classes that SMU's had, and definitely since Larry Brown, and keep the momentum rolling at SMU. So look, hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. Of course, one final reminder, reach out to Mark Villasana, go through him, 214-352-5656, and talk with him about your insurance coverage. Make sure it's the right coverage for you and your family or your business. He can handle all that. 214-352-5656. Appreciate you guys listening to the On the Pony Express podcast. We've got a bunch of great content coming your way, so hit that subscribe button, turn on the alerts, do all the things. We appreciate you guys listening, and hope you guys have a great weekend, and keep it locked at ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.